After I refused to give my dad my inheritance, he invited me to a family meeting. But when I walked in and saw the lawyers, I knew exactly what was happening. I'm Jason, 28, and my grandfather left me his entire $3.2 million trucking business when he passed last year. My dad, Martin, expected it to go to him, but Grandpa's will was crystal clear. Everything goes to me. The family meeting was obviously an ambush. Dad, my stepmom Joanne, and two expensive-looking lawyers were sitting around our dining table with papers spread everywhere. One lawyer, this slick guy in a $2,000 suit, slides a document toward me. Jason, we've prepared a simple asset transfer. Your father is much better equipped to handle a business of this magnitude. We just need your signature here. They all stared at me like I was some naive kid who'd fold under pressure. Dad had that smug look he gets when he thinks he's outsmarted everyone. Son, this is what's best for the family. Grandpa would understand. Joanne chimed in with her fake concerned voice. Honey, running a trucking company is so stressful. You're still young. You should be enjoying life, not dealing with all these responsibilities. The second lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out more documents. We've also prepared a trust fund arrangement. You'd receive a monthly allowance of $5,000, which is quite generous for someone your age. $5,000 a month for my own inheritance. The audacity was breathtaking. But here's what they didn't know. Grandpa saw this coming from a mile away. 3 months before he died, he pulled me aside in his old office that still smelled like diesel fuel and coffee. His hands were shaking from the chemo, but his voice was steady as steel. Jason, your father's going to try to take this business from you. When he does, you call my old friend Philip Turner. Don't argue. Don't negotiate. Just call Philip. He handed me a business card that I'd kept in my wallet ever since. The edges were worn now, but the number was still clear. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Philip, it's Jason Matthews. Yeah, it's time. The room went dead silent. Dad's face shifted from smug confidence to confusion, then to something that looked like panic. Who are you calling? He demanded. 5 minutes later, Philip Turner walked through our front door. The same lawyer who'd been handling our family's legal affairs for 30 years. The same lawyer who knew every detail of Grandpa's business dealings. He was older now, probably in his 72nd, but he moved with purpose. The expensive lawyers' faces went white when Philip announced he was representing me. Martin, your father specifically added a clause to his will. Any attempt to coerce Jason into transferring assets results in immediate legal action and a restraining order. Philip opened his own briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Walter anticipated this exact scenario. He documented every conversation you two had about the inheritance, including the one where you told him Jason was too immature to handle the business. The slick lawyer tried to interject. Now wait a minute. This is just a family discussion about this is attempted inheritance fraud, Philip said coldly. And you gentlemen are now witnesses to it. I'd suggest you leave before I add legal malpractice to the charges. Joanne was the first to crack. Martin, this is getting out of hand. Maybe we should just... Shut up, Joanne, Dad snapped, his mask finally slipping completely. Philip pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police to file a report. Jason, you're getting that restraining order today. The two lawyers practically ran out of the house, mumbling about conflicts of interest. Joanne followed them, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Dad stood there for a moment, his face red with rage and embarrassment. This isn't over, Jason. That business should be mine. Actually, it is over, Philip said. The restraining order includes a no-contact clause regarding the business. You're done, Martin. Dad pulled out his phone and made a call right there. Yeah, it's Martin Matthews. Activate the loan. He hung up and grinned at me. See, Jason? Grandpa took out a $2.8 million business loan 6 months before he died. With me as co-signer. The payment's due in 30 days. Philip grabbed the phone. That's impossible. Walter would never. Dad slid a bank statement across the table, and I watched all the color drain from Philip's face as he read the terms. Philip's hands were literally shaking as he held that bank statement. I need to see the original loan documents. Right now. Dad's grin got even wider. They're at the bank, along with Grandpa's signature on every single page. Philip pulled out his phone and started dialing. Which bank, Martin? First National, downtown branch. Dad was enjoying this way too much. Ask for Donald Reese. He handled the whole thing personally. I watched Philip step into the hallway, his voice getting more intense with each second. I could hear bits and pieces. Yes, this is Philip Turner, attorney for the Matthews estate. I need confirmation on a business loan. Yes, I'll hold. Dad leaned back in his chair like he'd already won. You know what's funny, Jason? Grandpa always said I didn't have the brains for business. Well, look who's about to lose everything he left you. My stomach was churning. I mean, this couldn't be real, right? Grandpa would never do something this reckless. But the bank statement in Philip's hands looked legitimate. Official letterhead, account numbers, everything. Philip came back into the room, and his face told me everything I needed to know before he even spoke. The bank confirms a loan exists, 2.8 million. Martin Matthews listed as co-signer. Business assets as collateral. He looked at me, and honestly, I'd never seen him look so defeated. They won't give me details over the phone without proper authorization, but Jason, this is real. Told you, Dad said. 30 days. That's all you got. The second he left, I turned to Philip. There has to be something wrong with this. Grandpa wouldn't. I know, Philip cut me off. Walter was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. Something's off here. I looked at the clock. It was already 8 p.m. The business office. Grandpa kept records of everything. If this loan is real, there has to be documentation. Philip nodded. I'll meet you there first thing tomorrow. No. I grabbed my keys. I'm going now. I drove to the trucking company office, my mind racing the whole way. The building was dark, except for the dispatch office, where I could see the glow of computer monitors through the window. I used my key to get in, and found Tommy Williams at the dispatch desk. He'd been with Grandpa for 15 years, working the night shift, coordinating routes for our long-haul drivers. Jason? Tommy looked up from his screens. Everything okay? Tommy, I need to ask you something. Did Grandpa have any meetings with bankers? Maybe 6 months ago? Tommy set down his coffee. Yeah, actually. There were these guys in suits, came by 3 or 4 times. Your grandpa seemed real stressed after they left. I remember because Walter never got stressed about anything, you know? Do you remember anything else? Anything unusual? Tommy thought for a second. Well, your dad started showing up around that same time, which was weird because I hadn't seen Martin here in years. Him and Walter didn't exactly get along. How many times did my dad come by? Maybe 5 or 6 times? Always unannounced. Walter would see him, but they'd argue in the office. I could hear them through the walls. I thanked Tommy and headed straight for Grandpa's office. The place still smelled like his cigars and that cheap coffee he refused to stop drinking. I started pulling open filing cabinets, going through every folder, every piece of paper. Grandpa was obsessive about documentation. Every invoice, every contract, every business decision had a paper trail. But as I went through the files from 6 months ago, something was wrong. There was a 3-week gap where there was literally nothing. No meeting notes, no invoices, no correspondence, just empty space where records should be. I was still going through files when the sun started coming up. My eyes were burning, and I'd gone through probably 1,000 pages of documents, but that gap kept bothering me. At 6 a.m. sharp, Philip walked through the door with a woman I didn't recognize. She was maybe in her 40s, wearing a sharp business suit and carrying a briefcase that looked like it cost more than my car. Jason, this is Sarah Chen. She's a forensic accountant, best in the state. Sarah shook my hand. Philip filled me in on the drive over. Show me what you found. I showed her the filing cabinets, explained Grandpa's system, and pointed out the gap in the records. Sarah's eyes lit up. 3 weeks. Nothing at all? Not a single piece of paper. She pulled out her laptop. That's not normal. Walter Matthews was known in the industry for documenting everything. He once kept a receipt for a $3 lunch just because it was technically a business expense. She started typing. I need access to the business bank accounts. All of them. I gave her the login credentials, and she went to work. Philip and I just stood there, watching her fingers fly across the keyboard. After about 20 minutes, she stopped. There, you see this? She turned the screen so we could see. Wire transfer. $2.8 million. Came in on March 15th. Went out 48 hours later, too. She clicked a few more times. An LLC called Summit Holdings Group. I've never heard of that, I said. Neither have I, Philip added. And I handle all of Walter's business dealings. Sarah kept digging. The timing matches exactly when the loan was supposedly taken out. But look at this. She pulled up another screen. Summit Holdings Group was created 1 week before this transfer, registered in Delaware. Who owns it? I asked. Sarah clicked through a few more screens. Managing member is Martin Matthews. My blood went cold. My dad created an LLC right before this loan? And it gets better, Sarah said. Summit Holdings Group was dissolved 2 days after receiving the money. Just vanished. Philip started pacing. So the money came in from the loan, immediately went to Martin's company, and then the company disappeared. Where did the money go after that? I tried calling Dad's cell. Disconnected. I tried the house phone. Disconnected. I'm going to his house. I'll come with you, Philip said. We drove to the neighborhood where Dad and Joanne lived, or used to live, because when we pulled up, there was a for rent sign in the yard. The whole place was empty. I got out and knocked anyway, but obviously nobody answered. The neighbor, an older lady named Mrs. Kowalski, came out of her house. You looking for the Matthews? Yes, ma'am. I'm Jason, Martin's son. Oh, honey, they moved out 3 days ago. Didn't tell anyone, just packed up a moving truck in the middle of the night and left. Strange business, if you ask me. Back in the car, Philip was already on his phone. I'm filing an emergency motion. We need to freeze any action on this loan and get a full audit of its origins. Will that work? It should. But Jason, you need to prepare yourself. The bank's going to fight this. They've got their money on the line. He wasn't kidding. 2 days later, we were in court, and the bank had brought in their own team of lawyers. Expensive ones. The kind that charge $800 an hour and never lose. Their lead counsel was this guy named Bradford Hayes. He stood up and addressed the judge like he was giving a TED Talk. Your Honor, this is a straightforward business loan. All proper documentation was filed. All signatures were obtained. The fact that Mr. Jason Matthews disagrees with his grandfather's business decisions doesn't invalidate a legal contract. Philip shot back. Your Honor, we have evidence of fraud. The loan proceeds went directly to an LLC owned by the alleged co-signer's son, which was then immediately dissolved. This wasn't a business loan. This was theft. The judge, an older woman who looked like she'd heard every excuse in the book, leaned forward. Mr. Turner, do you have proof that the signatures were forged? We're working on that, Your Honor, but the circumstances are highly suspicious. Suspicious isn't proof, Bradford interrupted. The bank acted in good faith. We have signed documents. We have a valid contract. The payment is due in 23 days, and if it's not made, we will foreclose on the business assets as stipulated in the loan agreement. The judge looked at both sides. I'm going to allow Mr. Turner time to investigate, but I'm not freezing the loan payment deadline. You have until the due date to prove fraud. If you can't, the payment stands. 23 days. I had 23 days to figure out what happened or lose everything. Sarah met us outside the courthouse. I traced where the money went after Summit Holdings received it. Offshore account, Cayman Islands. Can we get it back? I asked. Even if we prove fraud in court, recovering money from the Caymans is nearly impossible. It could take years. Philip pulled me aside. Jason, I need to be honest with you. My retainer is running out. Sarah's fees are substantial. If we're going to keep fighting this, I need another $200,000. I felt sick. The business had about $1.1 million in liquid assets. If I paid Philip and Sarah, I'd have even less to pay off the loan if we lost. But if I didn't pay them, I had no chance at all. Do it. Take whatever you need. The next morning, I got to the office to find 3 of my best drivers waiting for me: Carlos, Pete, and Bobby. These guys had been with Grandpa for over a decade. Carlos spoke for the group. Jason, we heard about the financial troubles. We got families to feed, man. We can't stick around if the company might go under. Guys, we're fighting this. It's fraud. We're gonna win. Pete shook his head. That's what you say now, but we can't risk it. Anderson Freet offered us jobs. Same pay. Benefits start immediately. We gotta take it. I watched 3 of my most experienced drivers walk out the door. Just like that, the company was hemorrhaging talent and money. Sarah called that afternoon. Jason, I found something. The signature on the loan documents? It's Walter's signature, but there are inconsistencies. I sent copies to a handwriting expert. 2 days later, the expert called back. His name was Dr. Raymond Price, and he'd testified in probably 100 fraud cases. Mr. Matthews, your grandfather's signature on these documents shows clear signs of duress or impairment. Look at these tremors here and here. This isn't how he normally signed. These are consistent with someone who was either under extreme stress or physically compromised. He was going through chemo, I said. His hands shook all the time toward the end. That would explain it. Someone took advantage of his condition to get him to sign something he might not have fully understood. Philip filed the expert's report with the court, but the bank's lawyers pushed back hard. They claimed the signature was valid regardless of whether Grandpa's hands were shaking. Then things got worse. The loan officer who'd supposedly handled this deal for the bank, Donald Reese, suddenly quit his job. When Philip tried to serve him with a subpoena, we found out he'd left the country, Mexico. No forwarding address. That's not suspicious at all, Philip said sarcastically. I got an email the next day. From an anonymous account. No name, no signature. Just a message. Drop the fraud charges and pay the loan. If you don't, we'll make sure every client you have thinks you're bankrupt and trying to scam them. I showed it to Sarah. Can you trace this? She worked her magic, and within an hour, she had an answer. The IP address traces back to a home network, registered to Joanne Matthews, my stepmom. The woman who'd acted so concerned about me at that meeting was actually working with Dad this whole time. 2 days later, 2 of my biggest clients, Reynolds Distribution and Midwest Cargo, both called to cancel their contracts. They'd received documents claiming my company was filing for bankruptcy and trying to scam them out of money. Fake documents, but they looked official enough to scare them off. That was $400,000 in annual revenue, gone. I called Joanne. I know you sent those emails. She started crying immediately. Jason, please, you don't understand. Martin threatened me. He said if I didn't help him, he'd leave me with nothing. Where is he? Joanne? I can't tell you that. You're already in this deep. Might as well go all the way. She was quiet for a long time. He's at his brother's cabin, in Montana, near Whitefish. Please don't tell him I told you. I gave the information to Philip, who contacted the Montana police. They found Martin there and arrested him on the fraud charges. When they searched the cabin, they found his laptop. And on that laptop was everything. Detailed plans for bankrupting my business. Fake company structures. Even drafts of the threatening emails. But even with Martin in custody, the bank wouldn't budge. Bradford Hayes actually called Philip directly. Your client's father being a criminal doesn't invalidate the loan. We have documentation. We have signatures. We even have a recording of Walter Matthews verbally confirming the loan terms on a phone call. What recording? Philip demanded. They sent it over. It was Grandpa's voice, clear as day. Yes, I confirm the $2.8 million loan. Yes, Martin is the co-signer. Yes, I understand the terms. I listened to it and felt my heart sink. That was definitely Grandpa's voice. Sarah listened to it 3 times, then smiled. This is edited. Badly edited. Listen right here. She played a section. Hear that click? That's a splice. Someone took recordings of Walter's voice and cut them together to make it sound like he was confirming the loan. She ran the audio through some software and found at least 7 different splice points. The recording was completely fake, pieced together from phone calls Grandpa had made about completely different things. We had 12 days left until the payment deadline. Philip filed an emergency injunction, arguing that between the forged signature, the fake audio, and Martin's arrest, the loan was clearly fraudulent and should be voided. The judge scheduled a hearing for 3 days before the deadline. 3 days to prepare our entire case. Philip and Sarah basically moved into my office. We worked around the clock, organizing evidence, preparing arguments, tracking down witnesses. I was going through Grandpa's desk for the 100th time when I found something weird. A key, taped to the underside of one of the drawers. It was small, brass, with a number stamped on it. 447. Philip, what's this? He looked at it. Safe deposit box key. But Walter didn't have a safe deposit box. At least not one I knew about. I drove to First National Bank, the same bank that was trying to foreclose on my business. I asked about box 447. The clerk checked her computer. Yes, that box is registered to Walter Matthews. Hasn't been accessed since March 14th. That's the day before he passed. She led me to the vault, and I opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was a thumb drive and a handwritten note on Grandpa's letterhead. Jason, if you're reading this, Martin tried something. Open only if he does. The thumb drive has everything you need. I'm sorry I had to do it this way, but he needed to hang himself with his own rope. Love, Grandpa. I took the thumb drive straight to Sarah. She plugged it into her computer, and we watched the files load. There were video files, audio files, documents, everything. The first video was dated 8 months ago. Grandpa was sitting in his office, looking directly at the camera. Martin came to see me today. He wants the business. Told me I should leave it to him instead of Jason because Jason's too young and inexperienced. I told him the will was final, and he got angry. Real angry. Said he'd find a way to take it anyway. There were more videos, recordings of Martin visiting the office, each conversation getting more heated. In one, Martin literally said, "If you won't give me that business, I'll take it from him after you're gone." Then there was a video that made my hands shake. It was from the hospital. Grandpa had somehow set up a camera in his room. Martin came in with papers. Grandpa looked exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open from the medication. "Dad, I need you to sign this. It's just a business continuity document. Make sure everything keeps running smooth if something happens to you." Grandpa's hand was shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen. "What is it?" "Just standard stuff. Don't worry about it." On the video, you could see Martin actually swap out pages when Grandpa looked away. The old man signed without reading, too weak to focus. The last file was a detailed letter from Grandpa. It explained everything. How he'd suspected Martin would try to steal the business. How he'd made the business look more vulnerable than it actually was. How he'd set up the will specifically to expose Martin's greed. "I'm using myself as bait, Jason. I know what Martin is, and I need to prove it before I die so you'll be protected. Everything on this drive is evidence. Use it." We took everything to the emergency hearing. The courtroom was packed. The judge looked at us, then at the bank's lawyers, then back at us. "Mr. Turner, I hope you have something substantial. This court doesn't appreciate having its time wasted. Your Honor, I have video evidence of the fraud being committed. if I may. We played the hospital video. You could hear people in the courtroom gasp when they saw Martin swap the pages. We played the audio recordings of Martin threatening Grandpa. We showed the detailed documentation of the fake LLC and the offshore accounts. Bradford Hayes tried to object, but the judge cut him off. "Counselor, I suggest you sit down and be quiet." When we finished presenting everything, the judge looked absolutely furious. "I'm voiding this loan immediately. This is one of the most brazen frauds I've seen in 30 years on the bench." She turned to the bank's lawyers. "Your institution failed to properly vet this loan, and then attempted to foreclose despite clear evidence of fraud. I'm ordering the bank to pay Mr. Jason Matthews $500,000 in damages." Bradford Hayes stood up. "Your Honor, the bank was also a victim here. The bank was negligent at best and complicit at worst. You'll pay the damages, and I'm referring this matter to the Banking Commission for further investigation." She signed the order right there, and just like that, it was over. The loan was gone. The business was safe. But I wasn't done with Martin. The prosecutor wanted to offer him a deal, but I refused. Maximum prosecution. I want him in prison for as long as possible. At Martin's arraignment, he tried to act tough, but you could see the fear in his eyes. His public defender was already talking about plea deals, but the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jessica Park, wasn't interested. "Mr. Matthews, you're being charged with wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder abuse. Given the sophisticated nature of this scheme and the amount of money involved, the federal government is also getting involved." Martin finally broke. Right there in court, he admitted everything. How he'd convinced Donald Reese, the loan officer, to help him by promising him a cut of the business once I lost it. How he'd forged documents. How he'd created the fake audio recording. Everything. His lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "Your Honor, my client would like to discuss a plea agreement." "Too late for that," Jessica said. "We're going to trial on all counts." The prosecutor told me later that Martin was looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison if convicted on everything. Joanne filed for divorce 3 days later. She also agreed to testify against Martin in exchange for immunity. She came to my office to talk, and honestly, she looked like she'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. "Jason, I need you to know something. Martin had been planning this for over a year, even before Walter got sick. He was hoping your grandpa would die before anyone could question the loan. He actually said that to me once. The old man just needs to hurry up and die." I felt sick hearing that. The trial took 6 weeks. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Martin's brother, Uncle Rick from Montana, actually called me after the verdict. "Jason, I had no idea Martin was hiding from the law. I thought he was just visiting. When the cops showed up, I about had a heart attack." He paused. "Martin talked to me a lot while he was there. Bragged about how he was going to take the business from you. I've got recordings of some of those conversations if the prosecutor wants them. More evidence for the sentencing hearing. Donald Reese, the loan officer who fled to Mexico, tried to sneak back across the border to see his family for Christmas. Border Patrol arrested him immediately. He flipped on everyone. Told the FBI about 3 other similar fraud schemes the bank had missed. Apparently, this wasn't the first time he'd helped someone create a fake loan. The FBI got involved because of the offshore accounts and wire fraud crossing state and federal lines. They dug deeper into Martin's plans and found he'd been planning to use my business as collateral for even more fraudulent loans once he took control. He was going to bleed the company dry and leave me with nothing but debt. First National Bank's corporate office actually sent me a formal apology letter. They also offered me a business line of credit at really good rates to help rebuild. I accepted because the business was actually growing faster than I expected. Turns out nearly losing everything and then winning in spectacular fashion was actually good for business. Clients respected that I'd fought for the company. Martin's sentencing hearing was in March, almost exactly 1 year after all this started. I gave a victim impact statement. I'd rehearsed it 100 times, but when I stood up in that courtroom and saw Martin in his orange jumpsuit, all the words I'd planned just flew out of my head. "Your Honor, Martin Matthews didn't just try to steal my inheritance. He destroyed my grandfather's final months. Grandpa spent his last days setting up evidence to protect me instead of just being with his family. Martin made him do that. He forced a dying man to use his final strength to set a trap for his own son." My voice cracked, and he betrayed everything our family ever stood for. The business Grandpa built, the trust he had in people, all of it. Martin would have burned it all down just to prove he was smarter than everyone else. The judge sentenced Martin to 12 years in federal prison. He also ordered full restitution of $2.8 million plus damages, though everyone knew I'd never actually see that money. Martin looked at me as they led him out of the courtroom. Not with anger or hate, just empty. Like he finally realized what he'd given up and it was too late to take it back. 6 months after everything was resolved, I was in Grandpa's old office at the trucking company. Sarah's forensic audit had found something else, an account I didn't know about. A retirement fund for the business with $800,000 in it. The note attached said, "For when Martin shows his true colors, use it to rebuild. Love, Grandpa." I used that money to expand. 3 new states, new trucks, new contracts. The clients who'd received those fake bankruptcy documents all came back with apologies and new deals. Reynolds Distribution actually gave me a contract worth $600,000 annually because the CEO said he was impressed with how I handled the crisis. Tommy Williams, the night dispatcher who'd helped me that first night, I promoted him to operations manager with a $40,000 raise. He'd been loyal when I needed it most, and loyalty like that deserves to be rewarded. The business was doing better than it ever had. Revenue was up 40% from when Grandpa ran it. We had contracts in 7 states now instead of 3. I'd hired back all the drivers who left, plus 12 more. First National Bank tried to sweep everything under the rug, but the banking commission wasn't having it. They got hit with a $3 million fine and had to completely overhaul their loan approval process. Donald Reese got 8 years for his role in everything. Joanne moved to Arizona to live with her sister. She sent me a card on what would have been Grandpa's birthday. I'm sorry for my part in all of this. Walter was a good man, and you're just like him. He'd be proud.